Hello, everyone. While we wait for the last people to still join online, I'll already start introducing the Secure Invite Series webinar training where we've invited colleagues from the CRA-AI project to discuss the ins and outs of vulnerability handling with us today. Vulnerability handling is, of course, a core element of the Cyber Resilience Act, and it's very crucial that European SMEs especially are aware of what this entails. So today we'll be covering what vulnerabilities and incidents are, what the requirements are under the Cyber Resilience Act, and the expectations regarding vulnerability disclosure. We'll try to already answer some of your questions that you can put in the Q&A tool of the webinar throughout the webinar. Some of the basic questions, if time allows, we'll also have a short Q&A section at the end. But I want to preface that we will also collect all the questions that are in the Q&A, and at the end, we'll ask you to rate the webinar, and in that rating form, you can also, again, write down any questions you still have, and we'll collect those as well. And we'll get back to you as soon as possible with more detailed answers to those questions. So definitely make use of those tools. The webinar is being recorded and will be published at a later stage as well. Now, before we get started, I'll quickly also introduce the speaker. So I'm Anna Born. I'm project manager for the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium within the Secure project. So Secure stands for Strengthening EU SMEs Cyber Resilience. So it's obviously CRA focused. And with me today is Stijn Horemans, a CRA expert and with 8 years of security experience and also working within the CRA-AI project. A short word about Secure. So the Secure project is an EU-funded project under the Digital Europe program. It started in January of 2025 and will run until at least the end of 2027. And the purpose of Secure is really to strengthen the cyber resilience of European SMEs and especially help them and support them in their compliance trajectory to comply with the CRA. How do we provide this support? On the one hand, we do that through financial support. So there has been one open call and there will be another open call through which SMEs can apply for funding. And they can receive up to 30,000 euros in co-financing, so 50% of financing. As I said, the first call was open from January until March of this year, and the second call will open no later than October of this year, so definitely keep an eye out for that. The other way we provide support is through materials. So there's an integrated digital platform, which is the entrance point to submit project proposals regarding CRA compliance, but it also has the central repository, which collects and presents all of the materials we have developed. So guidelines, tools, video lessons are available on there, also in multiple languages. And we will continue to organize trainings and webinars like this one together also with other CRA projects on a rolling basis. So I'd encourage everyone to look at the central repository and also to follow Secure on LinkedIn, because that's where we mainly communicate about the open calls and upcoming training opportunities. So with that, I'd like to pass the floor to Stijn so that we can dive into the topic of the day.
All right, so before we can get started, let's try to get like the ground level set here. So let's begin by establishing the clear definition of what is a vulnerability. A vulnerability is an inherent weakness within our digital architecture, a flaw that is potentially exploitable. Now, for the CRA, there are two classifications, like publicly known vulnerabilities. These are flaws for which the existence has been identified and published. They increase our awareness and necessary tracking, but do not automatically constitute an active threat. So at this point, we don't know if it is actually being exploited yet within our environment. Then there's the next category, which is more severe, is the actively exploited vulnerabilities. This is the most severe classification. It means that the intelligence suggests that malicious actors are currently exploiting this weakness in live systems without authorization. The level of evidence make sure that you need to have an immediate escalation and remediation plan, as the risk is actively being abused right now. Now, then we can move over to the next part, is like, what is an incident? So if an incident is simply like if a vulnerability is simply a potential issue, an incident is somebody actually trying to exploit this. And it has been exploited. So when we classify this incident, we have to use the severe incident name. So this is a critical because it actually flags that the event did not just disrupt the operation, but it fundamentally threatened the security of the product. A severe incident is defined as any compromise that impacts one or more of the 4 core pillars of our business: availability, authenticity, integrity, or confidentiality. About those, so availability, this means that we are unable to access crucial functions or services when they are needed. Authenticity means that the information, transactions, or identity presented cannot be trusted as genuine or originating from the product itself. Integrity, meaning that some data or the application itself has been altered, corrupted, or tampered in one way or the other, to make sure that the attackers actually are using the application for unintended purposes. And then the confidentiality means that there has been exposure or leakage of any kind of private data. The reason this classification matters is that each one of these impacts requires a distinct, urgent, and detailed response plan. Understanding the gravity of the severe incident is what informs all of the handling requirements moving forward. Then, regarding if you have an actively exploited vulnerability or a severe incident, then there are some requirements from within the CRA from when you need to report it. So within 24 hours of somebody letting you know, you need to actually issue an early warning towards the EU. This early warning does not need to be a full report of like, hey, this happened and everything regarding it. No, this is just saying we've come to attention that our product has been compromised either by an incident or it's an actively being exploited vulnerability. Within that 72 hours, then they need a full notifications with detailed information. So the full notification is accompanied by the detailed information. We've moved past the alarm stage, and now we're providing the facts of like what was compromised, which systems were affected, and how far back does this problem trace? Because sometimes you might have been notified of an issue that happened today, but it actually has been active for already 2 or 3 months. Then, within 14 days, for actively exploited vulnerabilities, because these vulnerabilities are actively being exploited, there is a little bit more of a time crunch on it. Within 14 days, you need to have the final reports ready, which contains a deep analysis of what happened and also the corrective measures on how to fix this. A little bit of a side note here: if in your product you have an issue where it is not easy to fully fix it, fully fix the inherent vulnerability, mitigating measures are also seen as a corrective measures. So if it is actually a flaw within the core of your product and you can't rebuild it within 14 days, then you still are required to provide some type of corrective measures, be it, for example, some firewalling or disabling some features or whatever. Then for severe incidents, the time is basically the same reporting requirements, but the time is 14 days later. So you have 1 month to have the final report for a severe incident. Then there are a few other things that might be helping with this. So I mentioned that you need to actually report these vulnerabilities to the European Commission. Well, the thing that is being made for that is a single reporting platform, which is being developed by ENISA. They're developing this single reporting platform with the purpose is to unify and standardize how all member states report both vulnerabilities and incidents. This moves us away from varied national practices and towards a unified universal standards. For us, the standardization is incredibly important because it mandates that our local handling procedures must align with the EU-wide methodology. This elevates the compliance requirements and raises the global bar for cybersecurity resilience, and we must be prepared to meet the standards. Then this brings us also to the timeline. This platform should be operational by the 11th of September 2026. So the moment after the 11th of September and you have a severe incident or a actively exploited vulnerability, you need to actually report this at this platform. All right, next one. Then. So that was basically for what is expected of you when something happens. But vulnerability handling is more than just reacting to something that happened. Now we need to answer the question here, what is in our products? And that's actually one of the more important parts here. We need to actually identify and document not only our proprietary code, but also every single component or every third-party library, every embedded piece of software within your product needs to be documented. The requirement for the visibility is to ensure that companies are actively thinking about what software they're actually putting within their products, and also checking if none of that third-party software is actually vulnerable. The last few months to years, there have been a lot of incidents regarding supply chain attacks, which actually came from a third-party library being included within a product, which the organization didn't know was compromised. This is to try and help mitigate the risk a bit. Of course, this will only help against using components within your product that have known vulnerabilities, because if the vulnerabilities are not known yet, it can still lead to a compromise. But keeping this up to date will make it easier to identify these kind of issues. So what is actually like a hard requirement? You need to have a software bill of materials or a hardware bill of materials, if applicable, if your product contains hardware. You can see this as an ingredient list of everything that is contained within your products. So what we recommend to ensure that you can have this software bill of materials or hardware bill of materials always ready is to try and generate embed this within your CI/CD pipelines. This basically means that every time you make a new build, it will automatically generate, where possible, the software bill of materials. This way, you always have an accurate software bill of materials. Then you can go one step further, is we don't just simply generate the list, but we also validate it. So every SBOM must trigger a check against the known vulnerability databases. If any of your components show up to have any vulnerabilities, then it needs to be assessed by the company that if these vulnerabilities are actually exploitable or not. It could be that the way you use a specific library is not exploitable, but at the moment you discover this, you need to actually know for certain that this is the case or not. So you need to actually do the investigation around it or patch a vulnerability. So then I have a little question for you guys. How many of you already keep an SBOM up to date? You can go to the poll by scanning the QR code. I'll read out the responses. So 44% says yes, 56% says no. So this shows that that it still is a bit of a sometimes a bit of a hassle to get started with keeping your SBOM up to date. It also really depends heavily on what type of products you are building, because some of them it's significantly easier to automatically generate an SBOM. For example, when you look at like applications using Node or some Java applications, it's quite easy to get it. But when you go into embedded devices, it might be a lot more difficult. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. So then the risk management and the security updates. So identifying the vulnerability is only half of the battle. It's essentially finding the broken asset. The other half is, what do we do next? How quickly, how reliably, and in what manner do we fix it? This process of fixing is called remediation. When a vulnerability is identified, and this includes even minor flaws, we must address and remediate them without delay. This is a specific mentioned within the CRA. Without delay means actually you need to do it as soon as possible once you get notified of this. This means also providing the necessary updates and patches. The core principle is here that whenever we know there's a weakness, we actually start the remediation process. We cannot wait for our next quarterly feature release. It must be treated with the immediate priority. Furthermore, and perhaps more important technically, where it is feasible, these security updates must be provided separately from the standard functionality updates. This separation protects both the stability and speed of delivering the issue. Now, regarding the security updates, we have 4 standards. First, we must have a robust and scalable mechanism in place, a systematic approach to delivering the patches directly to our users and integrated systems. Ideally, it's an automated system, but anyway. Secondly, when we issue security fixes, they must be isolated. We cannot simply bundle a critical patch into a massive feature update. Doing so increases the testing surface area, slows down delivery, and exponentially raises the risk of introducing new bugs while trying to fix the old one. Third, the updates must not wait. Our goal is near zero delay once remediation has been completed and tested. When a vulnerability goes live in the wild, time is our single most critical resource. And lastly, the user needs to have an option to opt out on security updates at their own risk. This is because, in some cases, updates can cause business disruption. You do not want your security update to actually cause the disruption of the entire organization because you force it and they can't make it. They don't have the option to make decisions for themselves. Though it has to be very clear that this is a security issue, and that by not installing it, they have to actually take this at their own risk of, hey, we're not updating because of these reasons. We might not be able to work with it otherwise. Then our recommendation is to try and automate every possible stage of the patch cycle. This means automating the generation of the testing environments, regression testing, packaging the update, and deploying it safely. Automation is the only way to achieve both speed and stability simultaneously. Then there's also some requirements regarding the security update distribution and the guidance around it. So the CRA wants that our remediation efforts are not merely just created, but also distributed through secure mechanisms. This process must guarantee that vulnerable elements are fixed or mitigated in the fastest possible time. The focus here is reliability. We cannot allow update delays to become security weaknesses of their own. The distribution channel itself has to be robust and secure. First, we need a fully secure update mechanism. This infrastructure, the technical pipeline that safely carries the patch from an internal testing environment directly to the customer system. Secondly, the mechanism requires comprehensive documentation. So with every patch you deploy, you need to have documentation of what you actually need to do and how they need to patch it. Even when the patch is automated, you do need to include what it actually is doing. This way, the user can decide for themselves if the update is worth it or not, as it might still break their product or maybe not, depending on what is being changed. To achieve the necessary speed and reliability, our strongest recommendation is to automate the security update mechanism where possible. But if this is not possible, the CRA only really requires that you make it available and it must be available free of charge. So security updates you cannot charge any money for. It needs to be a free update that people will be able to either download themselves and install, or be automatically installed, or in some cases where installation is not possible automatically, they will need to have the right documentation to know how to install it properly themselves, or some support to have somebody else come do it. Okay. Then security testing. So we have established that identifying vulnerabilities is necessary and fixing them is mandatory. But even with the best patching cycle in place, what if a new vulnerability sneaks into your own code base? What if a feature update accidentally compromises security? The answer to this question lies in the continuous and rigorous testing. This brings us to the principle of shift left, meaning we must bake security testing into every step of our development process. We cannot afford to test our system just before a major release because this creates a bit of a security tunnel vision. We must apply effective and regular security testing and expert reviews to every single piece of the product within the digital elements. The review must be highly systematic and guided by a detailed risk assessment. We cannot test randomly. We must prioritize our efforts based on what could cause the most damage. Furthermore, testing is triggered by two key points. So every major release, when we release a big update with many new features, we assume increased risk and mandate full scrutiny. Secondly, whenever a significant change. So a significant change can be also outside of a major release, but often they go hand in hand. But significant change in functionality means if one of your core functions, which need to be defined beforehand, is significantly modified. Like an example is changing how a user identification verification works, or for example, changing the entire way that a user connects to an application. This is a significant functionality change, so this requires a new security test and review. To be able to get this level of security testing, we recommend trying to bring as much as possible into your CI/CD pipeline to ensure that while you're developing, you do the security testing already within your environments. This means that before every a single line of code can be merged into a production environment, it must pass a rigorous set of automated testing and of security and functionality. Additionally, we also still recommend performing some kind of security assessments on top of this, like on the infrastructure level, or as well doing a penetration test or source code reviews manually when you go through a bigger test, because automated tools can catch quite a lot, but some automated tools are at this stage still not advanced enough to detect the more deeper laying complex business issues. In essence, we are adopting a security by design mindset. By automating the diverse multi-layer tests, we ensure that security is not just an afterthought added to the end of development, but it is built in from the start to finish. Now we're going to go to that other question. So what I see coming through is SAST SCA. There is some testing, a lot of no's, penetration testing, feature testing, and some security testing, manual code reviews, also an AI review. Okay, would love to know your experience with the AI reviews. Okay, let's just wait a minute or two to see if anything else still comes in. Unit feature and dust. Okay. SAST STA. Yeah. Okay. So it does seem that quite a lot of people do have some level of testing already, but yeah. There's always room for improvement. The most important part when you want to get compliant with the CRA is that you build your tests also in a way that it is related to your risks. Okay. All right. Then we can move on to the next one. So then we have the notification for security updates and vulnerability disclosure. If an organization commits to security, it cannot keep its findings secret. The CRA requires us to build a formal notification system to disclose information regarding any vulnerability that has been discovered and subsequently been fixed. When we issue a security update, a patch, our communication cannot just say version 2.1, it is updated. No, we must say what actually has been changed, and if it has been, and if there was a critical, if there was a security flaw in it, it must also include some technical details of what the security vulnerability was. So it needs to describe what was impacted. So which product, which version, and what was the impact of it? Like, for example, was there a data breach potential, or anything like some availability that broke or something like that? It needs to be mentioned. All disclosures must take the form of a formal security advisories. These are controlled and polished documents that serve as a single source of truth for the fix. If applicable, we must also mention the standardized identifiers, such as the CVEs or the common vulnerability and explosion numbers. This ensures that our disclosure isn't just isolated to just our organization, but it actually connects to the global security knowledge base of the entire world. Finally, we also need to specify specifically what version and product was affected. The ambiguity of language undermines confidence. So try to be as specific as possible when notifying your third parties and potential customers as well. Then there is the coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy. So this is a document that needs to be put in place for all of your products, for all your digital products. What this means is you write a policy on how can a third party interact with you, so that whenever they discover a vulnerability, be it through an incident or it has been actively being exploited by malicious actors, that they can actually notify you of this. Now, the policy must clearly outline the agreed upon rules, like what counts as a vulnerability, how is severity assessed, and more importantly, what are the mutual commitments regarding confidentiality and non-disclosure. Having this type of policy does not mean you have to instantly disclose every vulnerability that has been mentioned to you. However, the CRA does require you to disclose it if it was actually through an incident or a actively exploited vulnerability. This policy is important. It can be quite short. I put a few examples in the slides and the links, so you can take a look at how they did it. There's many different ways to do it. In the end, there is no real wrong way if you still comply with the next following rules. So the vulnerability sharing and reporting of it is an addition to the coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy. This is basically, you need to have a portal or a method that somebody can actually contact you. It needs to be a public point that a security researcher or a customer can reach you to report any vulnerabilities. So how you do it is not specifically required, not specifically mentioned on how it specifically needs to be done. However, if you do it, it has to be with a secure communication protocol. So if you use, for example, a web application, you need to use strong encryption and need to ensure that all of this is handled properly and that there's no chance of leaking any information here or anything. If you opt to use a mail flow, we advise to use, for example, PGP keys to ensure that it is signed, that nobody can actually tamper with the mails, or it will at least be apparent if somebody tried to tamper with it as well. So those were all the main requirements. So now I'll just quickly go over the project that we are working on. So we're working here from the CRA-AI Project. CRA-AI Project is a consortium of multiple countries within Europe, where we are trying to make it possible that the entire flow from start to finish will be partially automated as much as possible and make it as easy as possible to become compliant with the CRA. For this, we have 3 tools. We have Attestra, the Attestra Academy, and PinSpot. I'll go into detail for those 3 tools in a moment. But the goal of this consortium is that if you have these 3 tools, that you can actually handle all of your requirements for the CRA, and they will be all integrated with each other as well. So you have one big ecosystem to get all of your products secured. So first up, we have the PinSpot. So PinSpot is the part that handles the security testing. It is basically a vulnerability management platform / security assessment platform that helps you continuously manage your security risk. So this is not just meant for a one-time assessment. It is also meant to quickly go over to keep all of your security vulnerabilities stored in this environment, so you can keep track of all of the vulnerabilities which are present within your environment or within your products. One thing we do try to do here heavily is focus on automation, because managing security for a product can be quite daunting. Imagine having to do it for a large set of products, then it becomes significantly harder and harder. So we try to make sure that we can automate as many of the repetitive tasks as possible. This can go from ingesting vulnerabilities from third-party tooling, as well as integrating with third-party ticketing system to ensure that whenever something is discovered, it gets triaged as fast as possible, so the right people who can build a fix get all the information they need as quickly as possible. And then, secondly, we also will have support for coordinated vulnerability management. So the coordinated vulnerability management policy, as well as the portal, will also be something you will be able to host within PinSpot. Although at this moment that feature is not done yet, but it is actively being developed. If you're interested in PinSpot, please visit our website, and you can schedule a free demo or send me a message through my mail. We can set something up. Then we'll move over to Attestra. Attestra is the AI platform that CyberCertLab has built under the CRA-AI. 5 capabilities cover the full CRA lifecycle. So first of all, the vulnerability handling and reporting. This is what is shipping today. So the day 1 priority. Secondly is risk assessment and SBOM importing, the digital twin and threat-led assessments, all mapped to CRA requirements. Third is the product testing, evidence and reports for conformity assessments. Fourth is the documentation and attestation, the tech doc pack and the documentation for the CAE marking. And 5 is the product maintenance, sustain compliance across the 5-year support period. For the 5-year support period. So the goal here is that by using Attestra, you will keep all of your compliance, your documentation, and everything all in check, so you can keep your products secure. Then the last one is the Attestra Academy. So the Attestra Academy completes the picture. So the CRA isn't just a one-off project. It embeds cybersecurity into your day-to-day operations. So your team needs to acquire CRA knowledge in-house. So there are five learning streams cover the full CRA life cycles. 5 what you get features, end-to-end learning, in-house capability, always current content, and multilingual delivery. And a research hub with real product case studies. So close with Attestra gives you the platform. Academy will give you the people skills together, and together with Attestra and PinSpot, you will be able to become CRA ready. That was it. Here is a QR code to rate the webinar.
Yes, thank you very much, Stijn. I'll also quickly put, since we're very nicely on schedule, so I'll also quickly put in the chat a short overview of what's already available, because I saw in some of the questions before we get into those, also some general CRA questions. So I wanted to point out that on the repository, I've linked it here, we have a guideline that's very beginner friendly, a legal explanation, a simplification of the legal text of the CRA that could be interesting. We also have a bit more of a technical guideline. So for those of you who already have some experience, that already makes some more practical suggestions. So it covers mostly the essential requirements of Annex 1, Part 1. So it definitely mentions some of the things that Stijn has covered today as well. And there's also a compliance assessment framework, which covers the entire CRA, so goes beyond Annex 1. And finally, the CRA maturity score tool. So that's a very easy to use Excel file that it's part of Secure as well in terms of if you're receiving funding from Secure, you'll be required to fill it in, but we also chose to make it just freely accessible. And that can just give you an idea of what you're where you're currently at, what your current status is. So take a look at those and of course at the tools that Stijn just explained from CRA-AI and yes, so as I said, the Q&A will quickly, since we have the time, go over a few questions. But as I said, if you have any other questions or if you have any topics that you think, this would be really relevant to have an additional training on or another topic of the CRA, feel free to also leave that within the rating form, because then we can look at those and maybe it can inspire us to make another training that's useful for you. So maybe looking at some of the questions.
Yeah, I can see them as well. So maybe I'll start with the first one. So security updates without delay and distributing updates in a timely manner. Are there any accepted best practices remediation timelines? At this time, as far as I know, the CRA does not have any best practice timeline. The only hard requirements you have is the 14 days and the 1 month. Now, what they basically mean is that, let's say your fix is done in 1 day, that you don't sit on it until the 14th day, because that's when the requirement actually becomes a hard requirement. So they want you to actually be as fast as possible with it. I hope that that answered the question. So then the next one, can you define becoming aware of an incident? If a 24-hour reporting deadline exists, does this imply also outside office hours? When does the reporting clock start? So again, this is also a little bit vague within the CRA text itself. Basically, the moment you as a manufacturer notice it, that's when the clock should start. So if it is outside of business hours, I assume that the moment that somebody seen the message and acknowledges it, that's the moment the clock starts. Now, I've been in some of more of the expert discussions about this, that it should be defined more clearly, and there is some discussion around that that will have to become more clearly defined. But at the moment, it is just defined as is. Within 24 hours of becoming aware. Okay, then for the next question, will the demo of the single reporting platform be available before 11th of September? I do not know about that one. I'll have to come back to you on that one. I don't know if there's going to be a demo of the single reporting platform, and if there is, if it will be publicly available or not. I'll have to come back to that one. Then, how would you explain the difference between an incident and an actively exploited vulnerability in a clear way? Technically, they both go hand in hand a bit. So an incident could also be, for example, if your organization got compromised, and by extension, your application also got maybe modified. So let's say you have a ransomware within your environment. This is seen as an incident, not specifically for your product maybe, but you cannot prove that the product has not been modified at any time or any of the services has been modified. This could be an incident, but not an actively exploited vulnerability. Well, an actively exploited vulnerability is a specific vulnerability within the product. So in a sense, an actively exploited vulnerability can be an incident, but an incident can also be broader than the actively exploited. Yeah. So, are there any requirements for the CVD regarding the language publication? Would it be preferable to publish it in both the national language and English, or is publishing it only in national language sufficient? Good question. I don't have an exact answer on that one. I guess it doesn't really mention it's not mentioned anywhere within the document as is. So I think it kind of also depends on what your user base is, because if your user base is predominantly only your own language, then I guess it could be okay to only do it in your language, but doing it in English as well makes it more international. So other customers who might not speak your national language would be helpful as well. And then the recording will be available after download after the meeting. Yes, there will be a recording.
I think those are currently all the questions we have, which is very good. But please, continue to rate the webinar as well. I see some responses have come in. We can also send this rating QR code in an email after the webinar, also when we have the recording. And again, please also use it as an opportunity to offer your thoughts or comments or further questions that you have. I think with that, unless Stan, you still have anything to say?
Not in particular, no.
No, perfect. Then I'd like to, first of all, of course, thank you, Stan, for this very nice presentation and training on vulnerability handling. I think we both hope that it was useful to all of you and that it helped uncover some of the CRA, which of course is a complex legal document. Thank you for all your attendance and participation and presence and your questions as well. As I said, feel free to still reach out to us with questions or comments. You can see the contact details over here, and please also follow us on social media or check out the websites of both of our projects. So yeah, with that, I would like to say thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.